What up, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of Funboxing with Will. I'm your host, Will, with H2O Co. Film and Photo, and today we're going to be getting into an EDC review of a classic pocket knife by Buck, the folding Buck 110 Hunter. I wanted to do a video on this knife just because it's an iconic knife for the EDC community, and it's been in everyone's pocket for about 60 years, going on 60 years now. So what is a knife review channel without a knife review for the Buck 110? So let's get into that review today, guys.
Christmas is coming. Start sending your letters off to Santa. Christmas is coming, yeah. It'd be nice if you want your present. Tell all your brothers.
Alrighty, everybody. Now, before we get down over to the top-down setup, so we can get a closer look at this Buck 110 folder right here, I just wanted, again, as always, say thank you to anybody who stopped by to check out this video, or anybody who's subscribed to the channel. If you like EDC content or tech reviews or EDC reviews, this is the place to be. I'll do a lot of tech reviews, a lot of EDC reviews, things of that nature. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. My channel's actually started to gain traction this last year. I hit over 1,000 subscribers recently, and I just, from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you to every one of you guys. It means so much to me, and I'm going to keep going with this channel as long as I possibly can. So other than that, we're going to go over to the top-down setup and take a closer look at this knife today, guys. So let's get over there and check it out. Alrighty, everybody, now that we're over here at the top-down setup, we can take a closer look at this classic EDC carry from Buck, the Buck 110 Hunter. This is a folding knife that is kind of out of my genre or forte of knives that I carry. It's not the average knife that I have in my collection, and actually it's I think one of the very few lockbacks that I do carry. I have a couple of them here. I actually have two different models of the same knife, basically. So the reason I wanted to do this video, I felt like I kind of owed it to the community to do a Buck 110 video. If I'm going to do knife reviews, I got to review the classics as well, right? You know, so I'm sure that a lot of you out there know a lot about these knives, but this video is more geared towards somebody who's considering to pick up a Buck. They don't know much about knives, you know. Anybody who really just wants to hear anything about the Buck 110. You know, there's a lot of information out there online about it, and admittedly, like I said, this is not something that I usually carry. It's not my average EDC. I am more, myself personally, into like the modern EDC carry. I love finger safe locks. My favorite all-time lock is the shark lock, but I'm into access locks, crossbar locks, however you want to label them, depending on who you buy your knife from. They all have different names ever since that patent came up from Benchmade a couple years back. But you know, push button locks, anything along those lines that keeps your finger out of the blade path when you're opening and closing the knife. I really appreciate those kind of knives. And I also have ADHD, so having a fidget friendly knife is always at one of the top features that I look for in a knife. Well, I mean, obviously behind durability and quality, of course, but a fidgety knife is always a plus in my book, you know. And this knife, the Buck 110 Folding Hunter, is definitely not a fidgety knife. In fact, if you'll notice here on the lower version, the lower model that I have here, you'll see that I had picked up a secondhand, or actually, you know what, this isn't even secondhand, this is from Buck Knives. It's just a little thumb stud for the knife that I put on myself with a little Allen wrench here. You can find these on Blade HQ or, you know, Amazon, pretty much anywhere you can find these online, and they're like $6 to pick them up. So it's definitely it's improved the knife for me personally miles and miles. I wouldn't even carry this thing if it wasn't for the fact that I got this thumb stud. It's made it carryable to me, because if I can't open a knife with one hand, I will not carry it. And with the thumb stud, this thing is actually quite easy to open one-handed. I do appreciate that thumb stud. And they also make different designs that aren't just round thumb studs. They do have like a thumb plate that's kind of like a rectangle that goes over here. And I've seen a couple other designs as well. But the main reason I wanted to talk about this knife today is because this knife has been a classic since 1964. It has been one of the most sold EDC knives in the country ever of all time. And like I said, I felt I didn't do my channel justice if I didn't at least make one review on the Buck 110. So for the OCD in me's sake, this is going to be that video today, guys. So first, I wanted to talk a little bit about the knife, and then I'm going to go over some specs of the knife and talk about my personal experiences afterwards. But so the knife, it was created in 1964. It was the first readily available lockback knife on the market. And Al Buck, he had wanted to basically, at the time, the most popular kind of knife for hunters was your fixed blade. Not this specific knife, because this is more of a backpacking knife, but a fixed blade knife like this that basically something that doesn't fold. It has a full tang and it's a big solid knife, you know. And at that time in the 60s, that was the most popular style of knife for a hunter to carry. But people did understand that when you're out and you're hunting for, you know, a day or two, or if you're on a long trip, or if you're hiking long distances, every ounce turns into a pound real quick when you're carrying all this equipment. So he'd always wanted to build a hunting knife that he could carry, but it would be less cumbersome, I guess, and easier to carry, basically. And that's where the idea for the 110 Hunter came from. Now, to this day, everything that they do with naturally sourced materials, and they have very good build quality. You know, they have a lifetime guarantee on all of their products against defects in workmanship and craftsmanship. And one of the things that I really like about them is that they have naturally sourced ebony. I believe they partnered up with Gibson Guitars, who they have a, I guess, ebony farm that they keep so it's sustainable. And that's how they get the ebony for their guitars that they manufacture. And recently, Buck has teamed up with them, and now they use that sustainable ebony as well. So that's really cool. I think that they do that. And then it comes with the brass bolsters here, and you can get these knives in so many different materials. They even have modern versions of these knives now in like G10 you know, handle scales, and I think it's called the Slim or the Light, the Buck 110 Light or something like that. And all around, it's been a classic for going on, what, 64 it was created, so damn near wow, 60 years right now. It's actually about to be their 60th year anniversary here next year. So, there's a reason that this thing has been in everybody's pocket since the 60s for the last 60 years. And I'm sure if you're watching this video, I can guarantee you, even if you're not a knife person, you have seen one of these knives in one of your friends' pockets, more likely one of your father's or your grandfather's pockets, because these are, you know, they're renowned for being reliable knives. Now, as far as the locking mechanism on these knives go, I really enjoy it. It's a lockback. Like I said earlier, I prefer a knife that I can open and close one-handed. And you can close a lockback knife one-handed. It just takes some assistance from your thigh or, you know, any objects that are around you at the time. And that is kind of inconvenient, but it still is one of the best budget knives ever made, hands down, on the planet. And especially for the quality that you're getting and the materials that it comes with. I believe I paid $64 for this one right here I paid $64 for. And this was at Blade HQ. Well, Walmart had a special on their holiday. I think it was their 120th, I don't know. I think it's actually on the Blade, maybe. Yeah, 120th year anniversary for the company. I believe that's what that represents, is the 120th year of the company's anniversary edition. So this one was actually on sale at Walmart for, I believe, $34. And I think if you go on Walmart's website right now online, you can still buy these for $34. I'll go ahead and see if I can't find that link, and I'll go ahead and leave the Blade HQ link in the description and the Walmart link, if I can find it, in the description, for anybody out there who wants to go ahead and check one of these out for themselves. So the one that I bought from Blade HQ came with this amazing, really good quality, well-made leather holster for the knife, and I actually carry my knife in this holster regularly. Now, the knife is going to be a lot heavier than a lot of modern EDCs, but you know, as much as it can be cumbersome, and it's not something I would ever suggest carrying in a pair of like gym shorts or anything like that, it still is very, very, I still find it very practical to carry. And in fact, the build, the feel of the quality of the solidity, I would say, of a Buck 110 in my hand, I can't really compare it to anything other than the only other folding knife that I personally have ever held in my life that feels as sturdy and solid as this knife would have to be my Chris Reeves and Cosi. And this almost even it has less of a durable feeling when you're holding it. That might just be because the titanium on the Chris Reeves is, you know, a lighter weight material. This is definitely a heavier knife, the Buck 110 is. But it's still, at the end of the day, that's how good of quality the build quality is on these things. There's very little, if any, blade play ever in any of these knives at all. And the lock itself, the lock back, has been proven time and time again to be a very strong, reliable lock. And I believe until the triad lock, which is just a minor improvement over this lock, was invented by Andrew Demko, that this was the strongest folding lock mechanism ever made at the time. Then Demko came along and he made a slight improvement on it by adding a little extra piece of metal in between the tang and the back spring where it connects. And there's a pin in his triad lock, so it made it just a little bit more durable. And then, to my knowledge, now at this point in time, Demko's Shark Lock, I think, is the strongest locking mechanism on any folding knife. So going back into the materials here on this thing, you're going to get these in different materials. I've seen them in nickel, but the standard versions come in the brass with the ebony, and then they use a 440 stainless steel, and they use bushings in this knife, which is kind of unique. You don't see very many knives with bushings in them, and this knife isn't really meant to be taken apart to be cleaned. It's basically, you clean it with a Q-tip and some canned air, but it's really, I've never seen one that had stuff get in between the bushings, so I don't know if it's even a possibility for things to get in there. I'm sure, you know, if you dropped it in like a muddy bog full of sand, it has the potential for things and debris to get inside that pivot there. But I've just never seen it happen because of how closely, like, the tolerances on these knives, measurements, and how the parts fit together are just so precise. Like I said, it is a heavier knife, and the blade steel in it is not a super steel. So if that's what you're going for and your collection is just all solid super steels, this may not be the knife for you. But we're going to talk about Paul Boss's Heat Treat here in a second, and it may be the knife for you. So I'm going to go ahead and check weight on this. I want to say this thing weighs at least 6 ounces, if not more than that. Let's go ahead and see here. So we're going to come in at, oh wow, it outdid my scale. So I think this thing has I can't even tell you what this thing weighs, unfortunately, because my scale can't carry that much weight. And I'm pretty sure that this scale goes up to, I want to say, 16 ounces or something like that, which that doesn't make sense. It goes, 200 grams. So whatever 200 grams is the max weight of my scale. I'm going to go ahead and say this probably weighs 8 to 9 ounces easily. It's a fairly hefty knife. I'm going to go ahead and display the actual weight here. I'll look up the spec online so I can give you an actual weight to it. And I'll leave it right there for you guys to see. Measurements wise, we're coming in at a 5-inch right on the nose, 5 inches here, closed length, with a full total length of, I want to say, close to 8 inches, 7-something inches. Oh, over 8 inches. We're coming in at 8.7 inches here. 8.6 inches there. And then you're going to have a cutting edge of, I want to say, let's see here, your cutting edge is going to be 3.5 inches exactly. Yeah, 3.5 inches exactly on that cutting edge. Now, like I said, this is a well-loved knife, and it's a lot of that has to do, I believe, with the versatility of the clip point blade that they have here. It's a hollow grind that comes up, I want to say, 75% of the way to the top of the blade, and then there's a swedge there. And this thing is just, it's durable, and it's tough, and it's very, very slicey. And not only that, but because it's made from the 440 steel, it's very easy to sharpen. This is one of those knives that if you got stranded out in the middle of nowhere, you could sharpen on, you know, your car window. You could sharpen it on the bottom of a coffee cup. You could sharpen it, hell, probably on a river rock if you needed to, in a really tight situation. We're gonna get measurements here of the blade stock thickness, because as I was saying, this is a very super slicey blade. The blade stock thickness overall is gonna come in at 1.160, and then we're going to have a super slicey edge coming in behind the edge here at 240 thousandths of an inch right there. So that is definitely super slicey. I've said it in 100 of my videos before. Anything I think under 500 thousandths of an inch is going to provide you with a fairly slicey EDC knife. I personally like to see the numbers in the 250 to 300 range, but this is still going to be super slicey. There's just so much you can do with this knife, and it became one of the most popular hunting knives ever made almost immediately once it was released, and like I said, there's a reason that everybody loves it. Now, the super steel in this knife, I'm sorry, it doesn't have super steel in this knife, but it kind of, in my opinion, does in a funny way. So Paul Boss, he is world renowned for his heat treating. He is actually he was one of the best people to go to ever in the industry if you needed metal heat treated, because he was just a genius with it. And this material, the way he's heat treated this steel, in my personal opinion, it performs so much more like D2 or even CPM D2. It's got a remarkable durability. You know, I've seen very common the tips broken off of these knives. And yeah, I'm sure that people misuse these knives quite often, and that leads to tip failure. But you know, this for being 440 HRC steel, he gets the absolute most performance out of that steel that you can possibly get out of that steel. And you know, in some of those newer models that I talked about, they do have upgraded steels. So they have some in S30 and S35 VN steel that you can purchase. But you know, this doesn't bother me. The 440 HRC doesn't bother me, and I personally am a huge steel snob myself. So just the quality of Paul Boss's heat treat is so amazing to me that I overlook it a lot. And when I use this knife, it always amazes me how sharp I can get this thing, and just how easily it'll shoot right through anything like butter, you know. So it's definitely something that over the time I've kind of had to get away from the idea that if it's not a super steel, it's not a good steel, because that's just simply not true. Then we're going to do a size comparison here. It's funny enough, size-wise, it's really close to the Chris Reeves and Cosi. It's a little bit larger, and it's got a different style blade, but out of all the knives I have here on the table, I think this is the closest to size comparison. I would definitely consider it a medium to large EDC carry. I have what I would consider to be a large glove hand, and I can get a full 4-finger purchase on this with no problem, and I still have plenty of pommels sticking out of the back end there. And then it's not really a knife that's meant to be choked up on, but you can if you had to. There's no finger choil or anything like that, and it kind of bugs me that they don't have a choil here, just because you do end up getting that smile in the blade when you sharpen it. After a couple sharpenings, you're going to get that smile there. But you know, I think that's also some of the flair to having a Buck 110, it just in general, because it's such a classic and iconic style knife, and the look is so iconic that probably would be the one knife that I wouldn't really care that had that, you know, have happened to it after a few sharpenings. So and then here it is next to a very popular EDC, the Benchmade Bug Out. So it's definitely a bit larger than that. Here it is next to another very popular EDC, the Benchmade Warren Osborne, right there. And then I think it's the 940-2 right there. And then lastly, here it is next to the Rick Hinderer XM18. So as you can see, it's definitely a full-size knife. It's something that I would consider to be a very cumbersome knife. Again, I would not suggest carrying this in anything without a belt. I could not. I'm not a pocket guy. I don't like having a lot of things in my pocket, so I actually have a couple belt holsters for just different things, like my multi-tool. I can carry my keys and stuff. I have an organizer, leather organizer I wear on my belt. And then I have this Buck holster that I wear on my belt. And I honestly, I don't think that if I didn't have the holster that I would carry this, because then it would have to be in my pocket weighing me down. But if you're in any kind of clothing with jeans and a belt, this is definitely a great option to carry. And who knows, some people out there may not be bothered by having 9 ounces in their pocket. Kudos to you guys. Carry it in your pocket if you want to. I'm not hating here. It's just not the way I would prefer to carry it. Now, this is generally where I would go ahead and do a hardware check on this. I think, don't quote me on this, I'm pretty sure that these pins are brass as well. I thought for a long time that they were nickel, but I ended up being wrong, I found out. So I do think that they have some special editions that have the nickel plated bolsters, or I'm sorry, pins. But again, this is not a knife that you really take apart to clean ever. You just throw some WD-40 in the pivot right there in the bushings, and then you just blow out or use a Q-tip to get in there and clean everything out. And it's going to last you forever. So in my personal experience, like I said, I've carried it for a while, and I've loved the knife for the entire time that I've carried it. It took me probably 2 years of collecting knives to finally break down and get one, because like I said, I am a steel snob for the most part, and I don't have any knives other than this one in 440 steel. So, but you know, after getting it and after using it, I just have so much appreciation for it, and I understand hands down why it is such a classic and why people have loved this knife for, you know, the past going on 60 years now. Before we go, I wanted to talk about one more thing. So actually, the one thing I did want to mention about this knife that I find very amazing, and I like very much so, is that every year there is a symbol here on the knife that I don't know how good you can see it right there. I'll zoom in on it for you. But every year that symbol changes, and they have a list on their website that you can go to. So here is the non-anniversary edition, and that's the symbol that this one has. And then as you can see, the symbol is different on this one here. Now that is the maker's mark, and they put a new one on for every year since 1964 that they've made this knife. So every year since 1964, they have a different one that you can look up. So if you ever buy one of these used, I would definitely check that maker's mark and look it up online to see if maybe you've hit gold with a treasure. Like, you never know. I do believe some of these older ones are worth quite a bit of money. So for you yard salers out there, you know, don't ever pass up the opportunity to get a good deal on a buck knife. That's one thing I'll let you know right now. All right, guys. So that being said, now we're going to get back over to the desktop setup so we can finish out this video. And again, thank you guys so much for checking out the Buck 110 Folding Hunter with me today. Alrighty, everybody. Well, like I said before, thank you guys for stopping by and checking out this channel. That's it for today's review. If you guys found any of this information at all informative or useful at all, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button and turn on those bell notifications to get notified when I put out new content. I put out a video at least once every 2 weeks. I try to do weeks every week, but you know, it's hectic being a single dad doing all these videos. So I'm going to have more to come though. So until next time, guys, stay safe, stay sharp, and stay creative. We need more of that in this world today. Have a great night, guys.
Doctor